Donald Trump has unleashed on Somalians after a $1 billion fraud involving Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was exposed.
I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries, too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. You know, our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain, and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it.
Walz is in the spotlight as several members of Minnesota's Somalian community have been charged in the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme after $300 million of funds were stolen from a federally funded children's nutrition program. But that's only the start of it.
It's a familiar sight in Minnesota. This exclusive video shows FBI agents walking out with boxes of evidence.
And that is absolutely something that our community cannot sustain.
One of two facilities raided on Thursday: Star Autism Center's office in St. Cloud and Smart Therapy Center in Minneapolis. Familiar because this is what it looked like when agents raided homes connected to the largest pandemic fraud case in the country. And new court documents show at least a dozen of the defendants charged for their role in the Feeding Our Future scheme owned, received money from, or were associated with autism clinics. In this case, the alleged scheme boils down to charging Medicaid millions for care they didn't actually provide. Since 2017, Medicaid reimbursement claims in Minnesota skyrocketed from just under $2 million to more than $250 million.
Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt blasted the scheme, amongst others, in Minneapolis, claiming they have cost the American taxpayers $1 billion.
And jeopardize the safety of law-abiding American citizens. In fact, according to a new bombshell report from the New York Times, Somalian migrants in Minnesota have defrauded nearly $1 billion in taxpayer-funded benefits under Democrat Governor Walz's leadership. President Trump is putting an end to this dangerous America Last approach. His position is rooted in common sense. In the wake of last week's atrocity,
and President Trump went further, calling Walz retarded for allowing the fraud.
In that same post, you mentioned Tim Walz, and you called him what many Americans do find an offensive word, retarded. Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz retarded?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him. Absolutely, sure.
But you don't think that
you have a problem with it? You know what? I think there's something wrong with him. Anybody that would do what he did, anybody that would allow those people into a state and pay billions of dollars out to Somalia. We give billions of dollars to Somalia. It's not even a country because it doesn't function like a country. It's got a name, but it doesn't function like a country. Yeah, there's something wrong with Walz.
But Whoopi Goldberg was not happy, blasting Trump for the slur.
The horrific part is, why is he painting all Somali Americans with this paintbrush?
As well as the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem revealed that half of the visas in Minnesota are fraudulent.
You told me to look into Minnesota and their fraud on visas and their programs. 50% of them are fraudulent, which means that wacko Governor Walz either is an idiot or he did it on purpose. And I think he's bold, sir. He brought people in there illegally that never should have been in this country, said they were somebody that they're not. They said they were married to somebody who was their brother or somebody else. Fraudulent visa applications, signed up for government programs, took hundreds of billions of dollars from the taxpayers, and we're going to remove them and we're going to get our money back.
And Scott Jennings exposed yet another fraud, this time the HSS scheme.
But this situation involves fraud across multiple sectors of the Minnesota state government, with taxpayer money winding up in some truly horrendous hands. It begins with the state's Medicaid Housing Stabilization Services, or HSS, which allows for Medicaid funding to be used for housing. Now, when it started in 2020, the cost of this was $2.1 million. Next year, it was $21 million. Next year, $42, then $74, and finally, a $61 million program in the first half of 2025 alone. The program was shut down on August 1st of this year due to at least 77 payments having credible allegations of fraud. After that happened on September the 18th, 6 Somalians in Minneapolis were indicted over this HSS fraud. Federal charges were brought by the U.S. attorney there. This was just the first round of his indictments. Now, the crimes here are severe.
When asked if he takes responsibility for the widespread fraud in his state, Walz danced around the issue and instead defended the Somalian community.
Dozens of people of East African descent have been charged, convicted, and sentenced for stealing more than $1 billion in taxpayer money from government programs during COVID. As you know, Governor, that is more than Minnesota spends each year to run its Department of Corrections. So I want to give you a chance to respond to this. Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
Well, certainly I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems. And I will note, it's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts criminals. Those people are going to jail. We're doing everything we can. But to demonize an entire community on the actions of a few, it's lazy.
Megyn Kelly blasted Walz for defending the community, saying he's only interested in political point scoring.
And it's not all Somalis. It's literally hundreds of Somalis, except for the 8 who are non-Somali. So don't generalize, Mark. He, too, has gotten the research paper on don't alienate the Somalis. They're still voting for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's very reminiscent of how he handled controversies during his vice presidential campaign, which is he's got some stuff to say and he hopes the parade moves on before anybody asks a follow-up question.
And during a press conference, Walz preferred to blast Trump than take responsibility for the billion-dollar fraud currently engulfing his state.
When the President of the United States sets up and tweets 150 times after midnight and targets certain people, it's not a coincidence that they're targeting Minnesota. We certainly welcome those investigations. They've been done by all of you and they've been done here. We certainly want to know that, but it's also the Transportation Secretary who is threatening to withhold our federal dollars. Look, that's who they are. This is who they are. We welcome anybody who wants to help us. We're fixing it. And I said, Minnesotans know us and our team. We led us through COVID. We led us through George Floyd. We brought our economy to one of the best in the country. And we'll tackle this. Other governors have dealt with fraud. I want to make sure I'm the last one that has to deal with it by putting these things in.
And whilst Tim Walz's oversight of one of the biggest fraud cases in America was all over the news, instead of taking responsibility, the governor tried to deflect by talking about Trump's MRI results.
Well, here we got a guy on Thanksgiving where we spent time with our families, we ate, we played Yahtzee, we cheered for football or whatever. This guy is apparently in a room ranting about everything else. This is not normal behavior. It is not healthy. And presidents throughout time have released a couple things. They've released their tax returns, not Donald Trump, and they've released their medical records, not Donald Trump. And look, the MRI is one thing, but I think what's most concerning about this is, as your viewers out there are listening, has anyone in the history of the world ever have an MRI assigned to them and have no idea what it was for, as he says? So look, it's clear the president's fading physically. I think the mental capacity, again, ranting, crazily at midnight on Thanksgiving about everything else, there's reasons for us to be concerned. This is a guy that randomly says the airspace over Venezuela is closed. He's ruminating on if you could win a nuclear war. Look, this is a serious position. It's the most powerful position in the world. And we have someone at midnight throwing around slurs that demonize our children. And at the same time, he's not solving any of the problems. So I'm deeply concerned that he is incapable of doing the job.